what's best pricing on Amazon currently selling.
And I just simply ask my customer, what do you want?
So that means they spend more time.
And there's other things you could place your brand.
Is there any suggestions from your side to keep it your profit margin safe?
Some are good for brands, others are good for agencies, and you guys can take your pick.
Squeezed podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Ecom Squeezed. I'm your host Sebastian, and today we have a very special guest, Stephen Pope. He's the founder of My Amazon Guy, My Agency Guy, My Walmart Guy, and you have a few other companies as well in that range, I assume. And he also owns multiple brands which he sells on Amazon, like Age of Sage, and he have an education side as well, which there are a lot of nice courses available. He brings a wealth of experience in brand building, running an agency, and managing a drop shipping business, which you don't discuss that much on your channel.
No drop shipping. Amazon's hostile to drop shipping. It's retail arbitrage at scale, shall we say.
Oh, okay. That's the right wording.
8 million in the last 12 months.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Stephen.
Thank you for having me on, Seb. I appreciate it.
Great. So I just want to focus on the brand, building a brand on Amazon. That side, that's something not been discussed that much because you have a wealth of knowledge on that side. You have built some brand and you have exited one of the brand. And some of the brand, I assume Amazon have trademark issues and you were dealing with that, I assume, right? So I want to start with the first question. That's what are the first steps someone should take when they want to start building a brand on Amazon?
So I love brand building because there's only so much you can do if you're trying to drop ship or do retail arbitrage, right? Like you're constantly sourcing product and you're pushing one thing to another. The nice thing about brand building is that you get to own it, right? You get to own the whole enchilada, the whole vertical. And so when I recommend people when they first get started is to ignore all of the data, ignore all of the experts, and instead do this one basic thing. And obviously I'm an expert telling you to do this thing, so you can ignore that too if you want. But do this one basic thing, and that is to stick to what you understand. Simple, right?
That's a very good point.
Yeah, for example, I was a competitive chess player growing up. I have played in the US Open, the Nationals. I have been in so many chess tournaments I can't even count. I taught in elementary schools in Utah. I taught at over 100 physical locations. I've had 1,000 students. I'm a chess player. I've even beaten the CEO of chess.com
really?
last week. So if I were to sell chess sets, can you imagine being my competitor trying to compete against me? You wouldn't have a chance. And I don't sell chess sets. It's too commoditized, and you know, Queen's Gambit has gone and whatever. But the point of this is I would have a huge advantage. Now, imagine if I tried to sell dental floss. I'm not a dentist. Now, I may use floss, and I even have some floss on my desk right here. But if I was competing against a hygienist who could tell me the difference between Glide and the ropey kind that gets stuck in your teeth and bamboo floss, I would have no idea what the difference between those three things are. But a dental hygienist would, and they wouldn't even have to Google it. We could talk about example after example, why a chemist would do better at supplements, why an MMA fighter would do better at supplements versus me, an uncompetitive guy who's done jiu-jitsu 12 times that doesn't know anything about chemistry. But if you stick to what you understand, that's a moat. You know, I've ran an agency for 6.5 years. I've been selling on Amazon for like 13 years. That's a moat. If you listening to this are a blue collar worker who works on HVACs and you want to sell on Amazon, you could pick a tool to sell to HVAC workers and you would have a huge edge because you'd be the customer avatar. You could even take pictures of yourself installing things using your tool. You would know exactly what to say. Wouldn't be hard at all for you. So stick to what you understand. Best tip I'll give on today's podcast, probably, right out of the gate.
I totally agree with you. I have done the same as well for myself. I used to sell cycling stuff, but I used to do a lot of cycling. So I know in and out of cycling. That means, I was able to gather information about different parts of cycling, what are the trends. I used to cycle with other groups, so I know exactly what's happening in the groups, what they're talking, and based on that, I can, introduce new products. So that's something, you're right about that. On the next question, let's assume that, I have the product in mind, right? in terms of research, how do you do that? I need to know, what's the right pricing, what's best pricing on Amazon currently selling, and what's the competition look like? How do you manage all those factors?
I mean, I'll tell you how I do it for my agency, and I'll tell you how I do it for my brand. So with my agency, I ignore everything. And I just simply ask my customer, what do you want? I give it to them. And then I say, did I give you what you wanted? And I'm here to tell you that if you stick to that and ignore your competitors and forget about competitor research and just simply go straight to the customer, you're going to be way better off. Now, having said that, when I do sell things on Amazon, I do some competitor research. There's a reason for that. First of all, I can tell if the market is too saturated. So as a chess player, bringing that metaphor back, I would be able to go in and be like, should I be selling a clock or a chessboard? What has more competitors? What has more search volume? And figure out of the two products, which one should I start with? Right. So I'm still sticking to what I understand, but then I use data to narrow it down. That's how I would use data, right? When you look at the competitors, if everybody's at $20 and you want to sell a $50 item, it might work. It's just going to be harder, right? You're going to have to spend all of your time explaining why your particular item is worth 2.5 times more. You're going to have to spend time with infographics and overtly branded items. Maybe you have to run some influencer campaigns to express the value. Because if you have a demand gen product versus a co-op demand product, it's a lot harder to get things started. So what do I mean by that? A demand gen product could be you selling sliced bread 10 years before anybody knew what sliced bread was. By the way, it took 10 years for sliced bread to catch on. You have to tell people, I've got the best thing since sliced bread. You've just never heard of this thing called sliced bread. And you go in there and you say, I got a solution to a problem you didn't know you had. Way harder, right? There's no search volume when you first start up. A demand co-opt product, that's going to be like, hey, I'm selling marshmallow sticks, but I added a foot to it. And I'm going to sell the same stick to a different person who's buying a marshmallow stick, but now they get longer ones. You improve the product, but it's still co-opting the demand. Now, it's 10 times harder to get a demand gen product to scale, but if you succeed, your payout is 50x what it would be for a co-op. So choose your own adventure. A lot of engineers out there, patent owners and wannabe enthusiasts have lots of ideas. The world is not short on ideas. What the world is short on is execution of those ideas. And so what I typically find is the action dictates the strategy. My spirit animal is a hummingbird. If the hummingbird doesn't feed in a 24-hour period, it will literally die, right? So it doesn't measure twice each flower. Nope, it just goes to a lot of flowers. It goes to the flower, checks it for nectar, and within seconds knows whether it's there or not, goes to the next flower. That's what an entrepreneur needs to do in 2024. Not measure twice and cut once, but cut, measure, cut, measure, cut, measure, cut, measure, and bounce around to all these different flowers. Now, that's easier said than done, obviously, especially when there's a 6-month waiting time from your product to get from China to the United States or to sell it in Europe, and that can be more challenging. But in my mind, that's the process.
Great, thank you. That's a great answer. So we have two processes to follow on. Create your own brand identity and build on that one. And to follow up on your question, brand identity, right? So I can see from this screen, my Amazon guy. It's been written like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's everywhere, right? So you are focusing exactly. Even on the mic, even. Okay. So brand identity is quite on the boom arm as well.
Yep.
Let's carry on, right? It's very important, right, on building a brand on Amazon. So from your experience, what are the things that you will involve to get your brand identified on Amazon to stand out, basically?
So just like I'm showing up to this podcast with a t-shirt that's branded, an aquarium that's branded, a sign on the back that's cropped out, and on the mic boom, just like I have all those things, you do the same thing on Amazon, right? You go to the title, the bullet points, the A+ content, the brand story, which surprisingly still a lot of brands don't have their brand story up. Your brand store, which again, surprisingly a few brands don't have that up yet either, right? When somebody clicks your brand name and it doesn't go to your store, it will go to the search page and see competitor ads. So there's a lot of places that people don't think about branding. And speaking of A+ content, there's basic A+ content versus premium. Well, if you use premium, you're going to take an extra 33% of space, both horizontally and vertically. And your job on a regular Shopify web page is to not take up space and to push them to the checkout button and be clean. But on Amazon, the opposite is true. There's 1,000 different ads and bunny holes somebody could go jump down, Alice in Wonderland style. And so your job as a brand is to inundate the content, to have so much content there that the consumer will only see you competing on that page, to push your competitors down. Right. So horizontal real estate, vertical real estate, these are things that you don't really hear a lot of Amazon experts talk about, but the brands need to pay attention to this stuff. For example, in the brand story, there's 13 modules you can add. That's a lot of modules. How many people do they normally use? 4, maybe 5.
Yeah.
13 modules, that's 13 clicks to the right. Horizontal space. Why would that matter? Well, the ads that are right above that brand story are horizontal. So the consumer's already trained to click horizontally. So would you rather them look at your 100 SKU catalog clicking to the right, or would you rather them look at the 100 ads above the A+ content clicking to the right? It's a no-brainer. So click to the right. So it's all about merchandising that brand in as many spots as possible. A lot of people don't spend PPC advertising on their own brand term. Why is that important? Because if you don't, your competitor will at 20 cents, 30 cents a click, especially if you're a no-name brand with very little search, and then you're going to lose sales when somebody's looking for your brand. So there's all kinds of things that are in your control that you can do on an Amazon listing to control search, control the consumer experience, and push your brand out.
Yeah. And on the A+ premium A+ content, means I got an email recently from Amazon. So it was showing a data. It says, buyers tend to spend 16% more time if you have a premium A+ content compared to the basic one. So it means they spend more time, more likely they're going to buy, right? And the next one, what are the other areas that you will explore for brand identity apart from A+ premium, the images, branded story and stuff like that? Apart from that, do you look into any other process?
Well, I mean, you obviously can set up custom headline brand image ads. So if you want to acquire new to file customers, showing up with a custom headline ad, which is more expensive, can also be a branding play, right? You could also buy TikTok influencers or Facebook ads. And there's other things you could place your brand in front of the consumer. There's also coupons that can be utilized for both new to brand or old to brand, right? So sometimes you want to have a 10% coupon to come back and buy again or subscribe and save. But if it's a new to file customer, maybe you'll give them 20% off because you want to attract them to make that first time purchase. It's harder to win a new customer than it is to win an old customer back, so to speak. So there's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, I've even sent postcards to people with,
Really?
Yeah, to try and, get some purchases going. We'll buy email or address files for particular purchasers and hit them back up and say, hey, you've bought a light from us before, come buy another light on Amazon for our new brand with 20% off, and here's an expiration date. So there's all kinds of ways you can access the consumer that a lot of people don't think about. But at the end of the day, sponsored products, you can still launch a product, only do sponsored products, ignore everything else we've talked about today, and still succeed on Amazon, which is amazing. That's why Amazon has native-born brands. You can't say that about Walmart. You can't say that about other platforms. Walmart, by the way, is not really a marketplace. It's more of a retailer that just allows you to sell there. But they push their in-store products to the top of the search results, which is why you'll never hear the term native-born Walmart brand. So Amazon's a fair-ish marketplace, still monopoly, but at least you can get to the top of the search with a little bit of ads, a little bit of optimization, pepper in some CTR for click-through rate, maybe a little keyword juice for SEO, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, great. And on that brand identity, for example, if you are your face is the brand identity, you are the face of your agency, right? If somebody sees your face, they know exactly it's my Amazon guy. So in terms of building a brand, if it's a seller, do they do something like that, like sending a message, personalized message after they have purchased, or putting some card to put some kind of, give that personal touch? Have you, tried something like that for your Age of Sage brand?
Yeah, I've done everything, tested everything. It's still possible to brown box it, so to speak, without branding on Amazon, but it's getting harder. If you don't have permanently affixed branding on your logo for your product, Amazon will revoke your brand registry. And I know this because when I was selling tumblers on Amazon, they revoked my brand registry. Even though I had permanently affixed branded logos on my soaps, didn't have it on my tumblers. And so they took away my brand registry. I won it back on appeal and then lost it again a couple months later and still have not regained it months later. Which is why I chose to sell my Aegis brand and focus on my agency, because the headache was becoming such a turmoil on me that I felt compelled to double down or focus on what was working. I also opened up a retail arbitrage account and did $8 million on it the past 12 months, which puts me in the top 1% of sellers for perspective, top like 10% of the 1%. And I'm getting a 17% net margin on that account. Versus my branded items, I was losing money because I was trying to manufacture new concepts. Like I had a holster brand, I had a soap brand, I had smudge sticks, and we were trying to make everything in the States, which was very difficult, by the way. So with that in mind, you have to consider controlling your own destiny, and I do think a product insert is okay. However, do not use the word review or feedback or have any stars on a product insert in 2024. And here's why. Amazon will say you're incentivizing reviews and will make you pull your inventory back. So don't do that. It's okay to say, send a picture of me using your product, post it on social, we'll give you a coupon. Totally cool to do that. But don't talk about reviews. Feedback gen, these days, not safe. Amazon's hostile to it.
Great. Follow on, let's assume that they have fixed everything. Like, they have the idea, they have the product, they have done everything, market research and stuff like that. Now we want to trademark it, right? Like you need to have an IP. So do you recommend, is that a must that you need to have in 2024 to have a trademark on your product before launching on Amazon?
I highly recommend it. So I have filed over 2,100 trademarks.
2,100?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm like the #1 trademark seller for Amazon brands in the world. And I got to tell you, a logo mark, not as good as a word mark. We've seen a lot of attorneys make mistakes with Amazon's interpretation of trademarks, but there is just a very good opportunity to trademark the brand. First of all, if you show up to Amazon, you don't have a trademark, what happens? You don't get a brand store. You can't do certain advertising. You don't get A+ content. So that's out the door, and that's like mission critical, first of all. Second of all, what happens when China sees your items not trademarked? They show up and start hijacking your listing. They can change the title very easily. They can switch your images. And a lot of new time sellers are just baffled by this process, right? It's the wild, wild west if you don't have a trademark and protect your IP. So it's mission critical to do this on day one. It's like, we sell trademarks for $900. It's very important to get done when you try and sell on Amazon. Just a lot of benefits.
Great. And for that £900, is that just the trademark registration and you will enroll for the brand registry as well, or just the IP side?
Yeah, we file the trademark and we send a guide over for them to register it on their side, and it only takes like 5 minutes. You just click a couple buttons. But generally speaking, the #1 area that people get stuck on is that permanently affixed brand name. And so you take a cell phone picture, pull out your cell phone, take a cell phone picture, and show the brand on the packaging. So on my random desk object day, so I've got these earwax remover things, and you can see the brand names right there. Boom, they're good to go. Got Advil on my desk. Advil's got a logo that's permanently affixed to the item. I've got this hot sauce, which is one of my failed products. I've got my brand name. The logo is right there. We put Sweet Heat much larger, though. Your brand does not matter. Small brand. But the name of what you do, Sweet Heat hot sauce, that's important. Make it big. Now let's go back over to my tumbler. Do you see a brand name on my tumbler? Nope. I'm in trouble. That's a problem. So you got to have it on the packaging and ideally on the item itself.
Yeah. So you have tested a lot. You have the hot sauce, you have the tumbler, and you have learned
a lot,
right, for those mistakes. And how much does that cost you, for example, on the tumbler side and for the sauce side?
I lost $250,000 on tumblers. Last
$250,000?
Black Friday. Yeah. Black Friday, I woke up, just a rounding error issue,
Black Friday.
Black Friday, I woke up and all of my tumblers were yanked on Amazon. Something about Amazon not wanting us to be in the parody tumbler business anymore. They nuked the entire subcategory. I was the number one seller in parody tumblers. And they're like, yep, we're out. Not going to allow this. You don't have branded packaging. I didn't get a single IP complaint. I had 1,000% account health, which is exceptional. But Amazon one day said, F you, Stephen Pope, and I was out.
Yeah, that's the trouble with Amazon. You get all kind of, it's unpredictable, right? To an extent.
It's still worth doing, though. Still worth doing, right? It's not passive income, but Amazon is still worth doing. It's made me a lot of wealth. I've bought my dream house and paid it off. I've got a new car. I've got 5 kids. And
you have a Lambo.
Yeah. I like the R8 better, though, truth be told. And so I tested out whether it would make me more money to like put pictures of me driving nice cars. It did. That just wasn't me, so I stopped doing it. But long story short, Amazon is great for those that take opportunity and leverage, but it's complicated. Be prepared for a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of mistakes that we help people prevent, and that's obviously been my passion. It's all of us against the Amazon, because it shouldn't be as painful as it really is right now. Like, Amazon makes it harder than it should be, right? You got to go get GS1 UPCs. Cool, let me change my UPCs. Nope, you can't change them, but you have to get new ones. All right, your listing's suspended. Here's the lost dogs of Amazon. I feel like I got to send Jeff Bezos a ransom note and be like, I found your lost dog, but you better reinstate my listing. Otherwise, I'm not going to give him back. Like, it's getting to that level of stage as a seller right now where Amazon's really dumb. But you can make it work. You just have to weave and dodge those punches as they come in, the 1-2 jib jab, and just watch out for the hook of Jeff Bezos on occasion.
Yeah, I can see I'm following on you on LinkedIn. I can see your frustration regarding customer care, Amazon customer care, how useless they are. So it means I agree with you on that.
File 100 tickets to change my title. All 100 get rejected. Yes.
Yes. That's very true. And, on the optimization side, means I don't want to discuss because you have like 2,000 videos on your channel, right? So there is no point. There's plenty of videos on optimizing product listing, how to launch, troubleshooting, all those information is there. So if you type in any error code related to Amazon, for example, on Google, most likely it's going to be my Amazon guy's Stephen Pope's video.
I hope
most likely.
So. We've made a lot of content to try and make that happen, which has been a big blessing. Content generation is one of the best places to spend time because it's one-to-many. Right, you could call up somebody and try and cold call them, and this works for both brands and agencies. Right, you could call somebody up and have a one-to-one conversation, but if you want a one-to-many conversation, you got to make content. There's no question. It's just much easier to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching you on YouTube like more than 5 years ago. So when you had like 300, 400 subscribers, I was thinking to myself, I see you pushing videos on a daily basis. I was thinking, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? He just keep on pushing videos. He's not having enough subscribers.
Something must be
right?
wrong with him.
Yeah, but you kept that pushing that videos, and as time passes, you got that subscribers, and from there, I think 4,000, 5,000 that came quite quickly, right? On your YouTube channel.
Yeah, but
ballistic.
2018, I was getting like 10, 100 views a video, and then 2020 it just started taking off, and I started getting 1,000 or 2,000 views, and then my old video content. Some people were like, your first ones don't matter, whatever. They freaking do matter. Let me tell you, my first video about how to build a brand store got 250,000 hits over the last 6 years. That's I mean, can you imagine how expensive it would be to pay a sales guy to give 250,000 presentations or to send a cold DM to 250,000 people? First of all, that's just insane. It's just a great way for me to build rapport, right? Like before we even jumped on our conversation today, Seb, you'd consume 20 pieces of content. You have a positive relationship with me, and we're able to understand my brand, my position, and how I think before we even met, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's the power of content. And so I do the same thing, and it doesn't matter if only 1% of the people that watch the content end up viewing or making a purchase, because if I've had 5 million people view my content and I only convert 1% of them, that's a multi-million dollar business. And a lot of people will have favorable views. They'll refer somebody my way. I have competitors that refer people to buy trademarks from me. I have competitors that refer people over just to fix a main image, and then it leads to more business. And so I believe it's all of us against Amazon, and I really do.
Yeah. And I think you've been a TV presenter, right? Previously, I think that helped a lot.
A little bit, yeah. I was
videos.
able to ask the right question. I knew how to edit videos, and the funny thing is, I don't actually edit my videos historically. I mean, we're starting to. I just hired 8 video editors because I want to level up here, and that's going to be a fun little change.
I see the changes.
2024.
I see the changes.
But nonetheless, over the weekend, I uploaded a video of me just doing a selfie video for 5 minutes, and that thing got more impressions than the edited stuff. So just speak your truth. Whoever you are,
be genuine.
And you'll get a few balls in the park on occasion.
Yeah,
you'll get on base.
Great. So let me jump back to the topics. On the marketing side, we can do PPC, branded PPC. We can do promotions and stuff like that within Amazon. Apart from that, do you recommend something else? On the launch phase.
Yeah, it's enough to do just PPC and have a low cost. So I think it's cheaper, easier, and more effective to just launch the product at 50% off and do a heck of a lot of Amazon PPC versus trying to sell it at full price, building out a Facebook campaign or a Google Ads campaign, or trying to figure out how to hire TikTok influencers, which is like herding cats, right? It's much easier to just simply show up and be at 50% off. Now, that doesn't mean stay at 50% off. It just means show up at 50% off. Get 50 units of sales at 50% off, then go to 40% off, get another 50 units of sales, and then go to 30% off, get 100 units in sales, and then go to 20% off. That's a strategy, right? If you are at full price and you do a 20% discount for a week and then go back to full price, that's not a strategy, that's a promotion, right? That's a discount that you temporarily ran. And it can be a good tactic on occasion. But if you have a strategy where you built pre-baked, we're going to raise the price based on these metrics, that's not a promotion, that's a strategy. And so I think a lot of people don't understand the power of showing up at a low price to begin with. You're going to lose money, obviously, but it's cheaper to lose money with a low price than it is to spend on high unconverting ACoS, because nobody wants to buy your low review, high price junk on Amazon. They just don't. Nobody has any incentive. It would be like you trying to launch a Shopify site. Why would I even go to your website? Who cares about your trinket? But Amazon makes it easy to purchase, good return rate, prime 2-day shipping, and everybody knows those benefits. So I won't harp on them. But the thing I do harp on in 2024 is strategically it's better, faster, easier, cheaper to show up at a low price, get some sales, and slowly move up to target price over the first 8 weeks.
Yeah. So, for that strategy, so do you combine with other PPC and promotions and plus, that the pricing as well, starting from 50, so you do it all together? Or it will be more customized depending on the brand or the client?
I bet you 99% of people listening to this, if you just spent $1,000 on Amazon PPC, put up an auto and a broad match campaign, maybe an exact match on a couple of keywords, and launched it 50% off, you could launch $1 million brand. Just doing those couple of basic things. And that's interesting. That's enticing. A lot of times people get lost in the hacks. They get lost in the, I got to go build 2-step URLs, or I got to go build out some external funnel. And it takes more time to do that than to just focus on the basics. And the nice thing about basics is they'll work next year as well. They're still going to work in 10 years from now as well, by the way, which is why my agency is going to be in existence 10 years from now. I sleep easy at night knowing that Amazon can't mess with my business. Why? Because I do the basics. The basics aren't sexy. They're boring, and boring is scalable. Sometimes I'll go into these conversations with the most advanced Amazon sellers. I'll read their SOPs and I'm like, this is ridiculous, guys. You can't hire a VA to follow this stuff. Let me show you what a real SOP looks like. They read it, they're like, that's it? And I'm like, yes, that's it. It's this basic. You got to dumb it down. You got to make this idiot proof. You got to franchise this thing because that's what it takes, is boring, short, pointed, and get to the straight to the jugular right off the bat.
Yeah, I think you scaled your agency based on that principle. You have the SOP, it's simple structure to follow, so anybody can follow that structure. I think that's a
Yes.
very good thing. Yeah.
I think I have a huge following internationally because I'm easier to understand. I think that me just saying it how it is and giving a couple of specifics is easier to follow than the convoluted narrative we often hear in the Amazon selling space. Basics are easier to follow, easier to scale, and that's why I hang my hat there.
Yeah, that's a very good strategy. Regarding, if you listed the product and, if you follow the strategy that you just mentioned about pricing, in order to scale from there, so would you prefer like, a minimum amount of product within the store, or is there any other strategies to scale?
I mean, I generally will buy 1,000 MOQ on a new item. I think that's very common, but you're not going to ship in 1,000 units on day one. Typically, you'll send in like 200 units, wait to see how it goes, stock out, ship in more. But for the professional seller who's been around the block, they know what's going to work and what's not. And they'll set up their MOQ to make it work for them. But a new time seller, 1,000 items, 1,000 quantity, typically the way to go, and then piecemeal it into Amazon over time.
Yeah. So if you are selling, for example, you have a fish tank behind you, right? So if you are selling a filter, for example, so that's your hero product. So will you build like a moat around it to supplement the main product, like like stones or like seashells, to bring in more traffic?
Yeah, that's what a brand is. Can you have a single SKU brand? Kind of. At that point, you have a commodity, right? But if you build a whole experience where somebody can add 2 or 3 products to their cart, that's what a real brand should look like. And by the way, instead of selling 3 colors of rocks, just sell 1, and just sell a rock and a filter and maybe a fish or whatever, right? Because if you start getting into the too many variations, too many colors, you're going to convolute the sales process. You're going to make it harder to convert. And it's interesting. I typically find when you add the second or third color, it doesn't increase sales.
Means that's something that I never thought of, actually. Again, your principle of keeping it simple comes into play.
You can have any color you want as long as it's black. Henry Ford, I think.
Great. And, the competition is a big thing on Amazon, right? So in order to handle the competition, what are the measures that you will suggest a seller will take normally?
Well, I kind of ignore the competitors. I take their keyword data, but I kind of ignore everything else about them. But so when I launch at a low price, I get some reviews. Then you need sales to get sales on the Amazon platform. It's kind of a weird phrase, but it snowballs. Once you get that, I was able to launch a mom box, a gift for mom box, and I did $144,000 in the first 30 days. And I got to SEO keyword slot number 1 for the term gifts for mom. I spent $5,000 on the keyword broad match gifts for mom in 30 days. And I spent, an extra $6,000 on other cursory things, but
with that kind of sales, you have ranked higher, right, organically for that specific keyword, gifts for mom, right, during those period. Yeah, that's a very good strategy. And regarding the profit margins, this is very important, right? So is there any suggestions from your side to keep it your profit margin safe?
Your profit margins are Jeff Bezos's opportunity, right? And so that's the challenge. A typical brand needs to shoot for a 15% net. Gross profit, you could look for trying to sell a product for 3x COGS. There's all kinds of ways you could calculate this from the front to the back end. But you got to get 15% net. Otherwise, you're just working a job, right? So think about it this way from a different perspective. Let's say you meet somebody and they say, oh, I'm $1 million seller on Amazon. And then you ask them about their margins. If they don't have a margin north of 10%, they don't even have a 6-figure job. And you'd be better off going back to the corporate world at that point and working a 6-figure job. So I do find from time to time that a lot of people, get fixated on top line numbers, which are important, but you got to get that 15% net after all is said and done. Otherwise, you might as well just go back to the 9-to-5 job.
Yeah. Vince, I saw one of your video about Age of Sage that you found a new use case for the shop, like men for soap or something like that in that range. How do you find new use cases as you build the brand? So do you follow any specific strategy for that, or just search on like Helium 10 to see what people are using? How do you find?
I made the decision I was going to get into soap, and then I looked for my customer. Right, I was like, I wanted to get into soap, and then I'll figure out what kind of soap, and then I used the data to narrow it down. And what I found is that for every 100 women's beauty soap brands, there was only one for men.
Yeah.
Well, it was a no-brainer to go for the men at that point, right? Because guess who buys the men's soap products? The women do.
Yeah.
The women buy it for their man, and so that's why I made the product the way I did. And I have my daughter who's 5 years old, and I made her the customer avatar, and she kind of looks like a Zelda character, and I thought that was kind of cool. And I was like going for like the kind of the neck beard anime sort of angle to it, and I nailed my customer avatar from the get-go. I really did. But I couldn't sell the product as a woman's product. Nobody wanted to buy it. Only for men, for whatever reason. And I have a woman avatar, so go figure.
Great. So did you create a new ASIN, or you just changed the title and target those specific?
The first soap I launched was for men.
Okay.
So I knew from the get-go that it was going to be sold to men.
It.
I just happened to get the right customer avatar from the get-go. But if I was to discover a new use case, I would shift. And I did do that on some items. For example, my smudge kit, I learned in the SQP, the Search Query Performance Report, that one of the top keywords that was coming up was sage candles. And I was like, this is weird. Why is this happening? And I had a higher CTR on that keyword than I did on the non-candle keywords, which I also thought was weird. So I go Google the word, or I go search it on Amazon, and it turns out I was the only smudge kit showing up when somebody typed in sage candle. And I was like, this is interesting. So I went and tripled my ad spend, and I tripled my CTR, and then I added the candle keyword to my listing in the alt text and in the actual physical listing. And all of a sudden, I own that keyword. I was like number one for a seller for sage candles, even though I didn't sell a candle. So yes, you can discover, especially through the Search Query Performance Report. I also like to call it the ICAP marketing funnel. ICAP, ICAP, impressions, clicks, add to carts, and purchases. And I think a lot of people over-index the conversion piece. They over-index add to carts and purchases, and they don't index enough, or they under-index on the I and the C, the impressions and the clicks. Traffic is just 10 times easier to double on Amazon than conversion is. So I think more people need to focus on traffic generation strategies, which is why the Search Query Performance Report is so awesome, because you can see your brand share, your brand voice on all of that.
Please go. And the next question, for the product, as you go, you have to refine as well, right? So based on the customer feedback. So do you think, what kind of feedback is that from the product reviews that you look into, or is there any other data that you look into to refine your product further to suit the customer needs?
Well, I think there are cursory add-on products that you can add and start selling once you get the hang of things. You can ask your customers, what else do you want? You can look at the customer data to see what else they're searching. You can look at the cross-linked products. What else are they viewing? And it's interesting in a lot of the brand analytics that Amazon gives us now is that you can see the top 3 products that somebody actually purchases after viewing your product. Well, if you start to see some data point you in the right direction, you can go launch those products yourself. So I think that's all actionable data. But at the end of the day, if you don't understand the product the customer is asking for, I wouldn't do it, because you need to understand it. Stick to what you know and understand, because if you don't, you'll eventually land somewhere where you don't know what to do.
Great. Means we don't have that much time, but I have 100 of questions. But I will ask you, for a person who want to start a business, launch a brand on Amazon, what kind of book do you suggest? Do you have any list of, in terms of HR side, basically running the full business? What all books will you suggest?
I'm going to plug my own book here, Amazon Selling Tips 2.0. You can find that on Amazon, and that has a lot of the great basic tips. From a business standpoint, I really love the book, The Road Less Stupid.
Yeah.
I made a $2 million mistake trying to build SaaS. If I'd read that book before I did that, I may not have made that mistake.
Yeah.
Traction is another good one. I think it's very common in the Amazon FBA community. EOS is a dying system, though. I don't recommend EOS. I just like the book for traction. And I have a bunch of other business books. If you go to my agency site, myguy.agency/case, scroll to the very bottom. I've got another 10 business books that have affected me on my agency journey. Some are good for brands, others are good for agencies, and you guys can take your pick.
Great. So I will put the link to the website here. And my last question will be, is there any other advice that you will give to a business who is going to start up?
If you don't take daily action, then you're not in business, right? Like the opposite of growth is death. So if you think about things too long and don't take action, there's no point, right? Like I can't tell you how many family conversations I've had about starting a business, or how many people at the dinner table are like, well, I got this idea, but I've been sitting on it for 3 years. Just freaking go do it. Like, just stop listening right now and go slay your dragon. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you got to go find the ballista and shoot the damn thing in the one skill that's missing, Lord of the Rings Hobbit style.
Yeah.
But go take out Smog and go get your treasure, because if you keep talking about it, you're going to be a long-lived dwarf who lives for hundreds of years but never went back and took the mountain. That's why you need a hobbit on occasion. Throw Gandalf into the mix too.
That's great. Thank you, Stephen, for sharing all those wisdom.
My pleasure.
It's been fantastic. And thanks a lot. I'll put all the links to his website and the books and all those details in the description. And thanks a lot for watching. And thanks a lot, Stephen, for coming.
Seb.
Take care.